losing you, then just, you know, try not to nod off. That would be lovely.
It's the morning. It's the morning, so I should be okay.
Right, so we've got that. Oopsie daisy.
Well, don't worry about that, Brian. I can do that.
Staying over there is nothing to do with
No. Yeah, they were slightly like that.
They protested too much.
Yeah, indeed, yes. So you're just drawing attention to it now, that's the thing, isn't it? The art of getting away with something is just never mention it.
All these hints and tips are appreciated.
I started recording it, so start and I'll...
Oh, right, I'll be edited. Right. Good morning. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
I'm Derek.
Derek. Ian.
Hello, Ian. Good morning.
Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you.
Right, as you say, it's a shame that small, but it's intimate. So
Absolutely, quite.
let's take full advantage of that. What we're going to do today is a basic, what I call a base tomato sauce, from a chef's perspective, which is what I do for a living. And by that I mean you can make this sauce, you can freeze it down, make it in bulk, freeze it down in little portions, and then just take one of them out, and by adding different things to it, you can turn it into what goes great with pasta. It will work well as a soup. You can add a bit of basil to it, add a bit of tarragon to it, you could add a bit of cream to it, you can just use it as a launch pad. You know, you can use it as, we're going to do today as a meatballs we're going to make with a tomato sauce. But you can also make it, add it to spaghetti bolognese. You can add it to a chili con carne. You know, you can use it with a bit of chicken and tomato sauce and mushrooms and whatever you've got. Just the art of cooking, I've been doing it for a long, long time now, is not being afraid to fail. Seriously. Because...
If I fail, we don't eat.
well, you don't eat quite as well as you'd hope, but you still eat. I mean, there's different degrees. If you do something and it's kind of like, oh, this is a bit too peppery, I'm going to be like, well, put a bit less in next time. Do you know what I mean? And it's by making mistakes, as in life, but certainly with cookery, little mistake here, you can adjust it along the way and you learn as you go along. And it's never too late.
A question, if I may.
Of course.
Tomato sauce freezes well. Would cheese sauce freeze just as well?
It can do. It depends on how you make it. The usual cheese sauce is made by you making what's called a roux, which is a mixture of fat and flour, which is cooked gently over a heat, and then you add milk to it and whisk and stir. So it does have that starch to it. I think if you put it into a lasagna or something like that, it's probably okay. If you add the cheese to it, you put too much of a fat content into it then, and that can break down when it defrosts. So if you're going to make it, make just what's called the bechamel, which is the white sauce, freeze that. And then when you get it out and cook with it, add the cheese to it then. That's what I would do. Because depending on how much cheese you put in, it does get too fatty and it can get a bit stringy and lose its consistency and what have you.
Long involved explanation. We went back for lunch yesterday, my wife. We had rockline with cheese sauce. It was delightful. I don't fork with cheese sauce with rockline. So if we could freeze it, but the cooking lunch with rockline, and then having to do a cheese sauce at the same time.
Yeah,
it's just a touch too
Yeah.
far.
You can make the bechamel and freeze it down and get some little pots like this. You know, or if you use those yogurts, just put them into the, wash them out, pour it into them, stick them in the freezer, then you know it's a portion of each time, you see. But as I say, I'd always just add the cheese when it's defrosted and out. And
Right. What we need, I think, is a bigger freezer.
Yes.
they're useful to have these things nowadays. I mean, because cooking can be such a chore. I know lost my dad this year. He succumbed to cancer, I'm afraid. And my mum, who's 81 now, she's living on her own. She lives up in Manchester. And she got my sisters and brothers about as well, but she finds cooking a real sort of,
Yeah.
you know, it's a kind
then they
of,
don't
it's only me, it's
Yes,
not
yes,
worth it
yes.
kind of thing. So, and that's because, you know, it can be, like you say, we'll have a bit of this, you've got to make that, and you've got to make that, and you've got to wash it up, and you just think, oh, do you know what, I'll just have a sandwich.
Just whilst we're talking about freezing,
Sure.
a chore I find is a mashed potato, but I do like mashed potato because it's very convenient to go with a lot of things.
Indeed.
And I've come of late to sort of buy a big bag of, I'll say Maris Piper.
Yeah.
And rather than do them individually for the particular, I do, say, 20 potatoes, boil them, put a little drop of milk and butter, mix it all that. And then when it's cold, I freeze it in various containers. Now, that has worked relatively well until I came to, I can't remember, the chef down in the south, the fish restaurant now. What it doesn't matter.
Rick Stein.
And he suddenly said, what you want to do is put egg, a raw egg in the, and I remember, as a kid, my mother doing that. And I thought, oh, I'll do that. However, when I froze it and then bringing it back, it was as if all the moisture drained out of the, and they sort of had this sort of watery slush. And I wondered, I have to say, I just went like that with it, and used it on a cottage pie. No, I'm still here, but it's just stuck in the back of my mind whether there was something different there.
Excuse me. I can't see how an egg. I must admit, I've not seen anything like that. I've not heard of anything like that. Why would an egg make a difference? Was the mix a little runnier than normally, or
it may have had a little drop more milk.
I just wonder if that.
Sometimes I'm not too careful about measuring. I just go boom, and a big lump of butter. I very rarely use other forms of fat. For mashed potato, it's nearly always butter.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was just noticeable, and I thought, well, that was sort of a batch that I put the egg in, so has that. Okay, right.
No, interesting. I honestly don't know.
No, it's okay.
To tell you the truth. I've not heard that. It should be fairly stable because eggs like.
Well, the moment you've mixed it in this hot potato, it's cooked.
Within
seconds of going in there. And it
no,
just
I
makes it
say
stiffer.
maybe the milk hand was a little heavy and that's just dropped out. But you stirred it in.
I did. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with that, as long as you defrosted it safely,
No, I do all that
it's
reasonably well.
Yeah. But there we go.
Another question.
Yes.
I can't help but see some of the spices here, and then I think is that parsley there?
That is a bit of parsley.
Right. I find myself sort of always battling. I get. Oh yes. Let's just say a piece of cod. I'll bake a piece of cod for sake of argument, and bugger, I've forgotten the parsley. Now, of course, I find it doesn't last particularly long, and the amount of parsley I'm using. How about, is dried parsley okay to use?
I think dried herbs lose a lot.
They do,
They do. They lose a lot. They lose the colour and a bit of the flavour. You can use them.
Yeah.
But their flavours become a bit too, to my mind, a bit too harsh. A bit too. They're not as nice. I mean, it's just as easy as I do at home. I grow pots of this by the windowsill, and if you're only using a little, just snip it off, and it keeps coming back.
Like a little herb garden.
Like a little herb garden. I've got rosemary, thyme, I've got sage, chives, basil, 2 types of parsley, coriander, dill, all at various stages.
Yes.
And when I'm doing my menus back at the restaurant, and put the menus and things in the dishes, it'll go and have a look, well, the bill's a bit low, so I'll use the coriander because there's lots of that. So I'll chop that off and it just comes back, you know, in a couple of weeks. And, but rather than going out and buying a big bunch of which you'll use that much,
You've got it exactly.
and
Yes.
you know, that bit goes. But I'll come back to
Okay,
herbs
sorry.
and spices
Okay.
when we start doing the beef,
Yeah.
because it's an interesting point now.
Right.
But yeah, dried spices, good.
Mhm.
Dried herbs, not so good. In certain instances.
All
Right, so we're going to do tomato sauce,
Right.
we're going to do some meatballs, which we'll then serve with the tomato sauce, and we're going to, and we're also going to do some brown rice
Oh.
to go with that.
Right.
We say brown rice because brown rice is far, far better for you, both in terms of digestion, nutrition, and all the good healthy aspects, than the white rice, the white processed stuff, which has all the interesting good stuff taken off it, like fibre and the white rice just is basically pure carbohydrate, which your body just, there's no great stuff in it. It's like white bread, it's far better wholemeal and whole grains especially. Now that's another can of worms as well, because what constitutes whole grain is actually...
Do you mind if I come a little bit sort of...
Come as close as you want, gents, yeah.
Just
I
to
don't
sort of-
bite, I promise.
Right, it's just,
Come on in.
You might get splattered with
I
the
don't,
fat.
I don't
I
mind
shall
that.
keep it over this side, so you should be okay. Right, now I'm going to fire this fellow up.
Those things
This is the...
I can see that. There's something I can see about that that really only appeals for a totally different location.
Right, so we've peeled our onions. Now this is for the tomato sauce. It's basically, as you see from the recipe, basically onions, garlic, and tomato. A little bit of oil. Now the trick with tomatoes, when you cook them, tomatoes have lots of natural sugars in them. So we're not going to add any extra, excuse me, extra sugars to this, because the whole idea is we're trying to keep adding extra sugars and salts. You don't really need it. Tomatoes have loads of natural sugars in them anyway, and the art of getting that flavour out is just to cook it, simmer it long and slow. So instead of just throwing it all in a pan, frying it and then whizzing it up and serving, we're just going to keep it on the simmer for about 20 minutes. And what happens is it starts to cook through, the natural sugars in the tomatoes start to caramelise out. This is all getting a bit cooky, this I know, but from there you get a lovely sweet, when you first pick a tomato off the vine and from your greenhouse or whatever, and just eat it, you get that little burst of summer sweetness, and that's what we're going to try and refine. So, I'll keep those back for the beef burgers, the meatballs. Now, you'll see here, I'm just roughly chopping these things up for the tomato sauce. The reason for that is because we're going to hand blend it. Have you seen these things? Blender sticks.
I've seen them, yeah.
They're great for making soups or stuff like that. Just fabulous. We'll show you that in a minute.
Okay.
Cost about, you can get a reasonably decent one for about £8 or something nowadays. They're great. They're really, really good. But if you haven't got one of those, the Kenwood blender things or one of those juicer things will work just as well. So,
The trouble with the Kenwood is the fact of washing up.
and 20 minutes of washing up to
What was going
follow.
on my mind?
Well, of course, the beautiful thing with these is they, it's not one of these that comes, some of them, you get them in 2 parts and they just clip off and you can run that under the tap.
Superb.
Or just,
I got to get one of those.
they're excellent, they're really. A little bit of oil in there. We're going to put our onions and garlic. And we're just going to fry that nice and gently. Excuse me. These induction cookies are really good, and I'm still not quite got them so easy to work. So I'm trying not to burn things, because I keep getting in trouble when I burn the bottom of the pan. So we're just going to let those...
You get the women to wash on.
more equal these days, you see. I'll do it. I started off working in a kitchen when I was
really
17.
missed this element of you saying this.
And I'm still washing up 40 years later, so this tin of tomatoes isn't going to open,
Yes.
fortunately.
Yes. I have a backup plan.
Yeah, you've got to have a backup plan, unlike Boris and Bexit.
Yes.
That's fine, you've got strong wrists. I've got a little battery operated one that you just put onto the pan, press the button, it does it, you don't have to hold the can. Marvellous.
Modern technology, eh?
Yeah, wonderful.
Right, now we're going to cook these until what they're called softened, okay? Which means still they lose their
Yes.
pungency. They start to get a little more translucent.
Yeah.
They're going brown.
We're not going to brown them. We don't want to brown them. What's going on here? There we go, he's working again. In the other pan, when I found it, I'm going to add my brown rice. Oh, we'll give you those.
Now, have you, say for instance, washed that or done anything with it, or is it
No,
just
this
come out
is
of
just
the
as it comes out of the packet, yeah.
Right.
So, I'm just going to add just a teeniest little bit of oil. Whoops, already anticipated. It's good ground. You don't have to do this, but I find that this helps the grains stay separate. You don't need a lot at all when they cook out, so it doesn't go to a big mush.
Okay.
Bit of boiling water.
Has that got salt in it?
I haven't put any salt in it.
Right.
You can, but the whole idea of this is to try and exclude these things from your dough. I think people's mouths are oversensitive to salt and sugars now because in all
Yes.
the processed foods we have, and you've got to get back to the real flavours. That's what we're aiming for.